Today we are going to learn how to find percents using proportions, and we are going to start with a review. Remember in 6th grade you found percents using the percent wheel, and so here's a picture of the percent wheel that you did in 6th grade, and then it says to use a percent wheel you place the finger over the value that you are trying to find. The remaining segments of the percentage wheel will show you the formula for finding that quantity. I know that you did this a lot in 6th grade, so if this works well for you, then you can use it throughout what we're doing through this lesson. I'm going to be honest, this is not the way that I do this, so I will not be using this other than to remind you of how the examples work. This is hard for me, and so I probably won't be very good at explaining it. So let's look at our first example. 150% of what number is 24? So we are trying to find the whole, and to find the whole you place your finger over the W like is shown in the picture, and then the formula is part divided by percent. So I'm going to take my part divided by 150%. And so then you can do that on your calculator, and when you do 24 divided by 150%, you get 16. So there's how you do finding a whole using the percent wheel. Our next example is what percent of 15 is 12? And so here you can see that we're trying to find the percent. So we're going to cover the percent in our percent wheel, just like is shown in the picture. And then you can see to find the percent, you're going to take the part divided by the whole. And so when you do that on your calculator, 12 divided by 15, it comes out to be 0.8, but we're finding a percentage, so that is 80%. Alright, and then our next example, what number is 36% of 50? We're trying to find the part, and so in order to do that, you can see when we cover it up, then we take the percentage, 36% times 50, do that in your calculator, and when you do that, you get 18. Alright, so that's just kind of a refresher from 6th grade. So if you remember that and it works well for you, then you can definitely use that. You just draw your percent wheel at the top of your paper, and then you can use it as you work the problems. If you don't remember how to do the percent wheel, that's okay. Like I said, I'm not very good at it, and so I have a different way to do it. You can use proportions to find percents, parts, and wholes. And I feel like for a lot of you, the proportions will work well. You've done well on the proportion unit and everything that we have learned up till now. So hopefully this will be a little bit different and maybe easier for some of you than the percent wheel. Alright, so the algorithm says you can represent A is a percent, P, of W, the whole, with the proportion. A over W equals P over 100. And that to me is very confusing. A is the part, W is the whole, and then P is your percent. So here is, I think, a little bit more practical way to think of it, and I'm just going to write it next to it. This is how I think about it inside my head. So the percent goes over 100, so I've even kind of switched the order of how it's written here, equals part to whole. Okay, so that's another way to remember it than A and W. To me, the percent sign over 100 equals part to whole makes sense. And then for me, a more practical way is the percent over 100 equals, and I'm putting this in quotes, is over of. Okay, and that still sounds like it's not going to be very helpful, but when we look at some examples, I think that this will start to make more sense. So go ahead and make sure that you get these that I've written down in your notes. And then I've even kind of given you a little star. When setting up the proportion, remember is over of. This will help you set up the proportion correctly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and write kind of the algorithm, and I'm going to do this, I guess, while you watch. The first step. Okay, so I've started writing my algorithm. You're going to start with the percent. So when you're looking at these problems, look for the number with the percent sign. Then you're going to write that number, the number that has the percent sign, over 100, but don't write the percent sign with it. And I know this sounds confusing, but I think when you see some examples it will start to make sense. Then the third step is the number closest to is goes on top, and the number closest to of goes on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and write those steps, and you can too. Okay, so after you write the number closest to is and the number closest to of, then you're going to solve using the cross product property, and we've done a lot of those. So there's your algorithm. Make sure that you get it written down, and then let's look at our first example. Alright, so our first example is find a whole, and if you want to use a percent wheel, you certainly can, but I'm going to show you using the algorithm that we just learned. Alright, so we're going to find 150% of what number is 24. So my algorithm says start with the percent. So there's my percent, and I'm going to write 150 over 100. I didn't put the percent sign on there because when I write it over 100, that's what the percent sign means. Remember, percent means of 100. So I have 150 over 100 equals, then I'm going to find the number closest to is, and that's 24. It goes on top. Then I'm going to find the number closest to of, and that is this right here. Of what number? So I don't know what number that is. When I don't know a number, I use a variable, and I'm going to use the variable x. So something that I do a lot of times, like at the top of my paper, is I just make myself my little cheat sheet, is over of, and then that helps me remember. My last step is solve using the cross product property. So I'm going to solve 150 times x is 150x. Then 24 times 100 is 2400. Divide both sides by 150, and we've done this. You guys probably have like a lot faster than I do. 2400 divided by 150 is 16. So 150% of 16 is 24. And that sounds a little bit weird, but 150% is over 100, so it makes sense that my number is 16. Alright, so my next example, find a percent. What percent of 15 is 21? And so I'm going to start with my little cheat sheet, is over of, but then my algorithm says start with the percent. So there's my percent. What percent? That's what I don't know. So when I don't know something, it's a variable, and percent always goes over 100. Then I'm going to do is, my number closest to is 12, and then of, my number closest to of is 15. Then I'm going to solve using the cross product property. 15 times x is 15x. 12 times 100 is 1200. 1200 divided by 15 is 80. And remember, I'm trying to find the percent, so I cannot forget my percent sign. And if you remember from when we did the percent wheel, I got 80% using the percent wheel, so I've done this problem 2 different ways, and I come out with the same answer. Alright, so example 3 says, what number is 36% of 50? So I have is over of. but I'm going to start with 36%. So 36% is 36 over 100. Then my number closest to is what number? I don't know it, so it's a variable. And then 50 is closest to of, so is over of. 50 goes on the bottom. Cross the equal sign and multiply. 100 times x is 100x. Cross the equal sign and multiply. 36 times 50 is 1800. Divide both sides by 100. X equals 18. And when we did the percent wheel, double check, we got the same answer using the percent wheel. So it makes sense. I've done the same problem 2 different ways and got the same answer. So you have some on your own problems. If you understand this, go ahead and pause the video and work these on your own, and then you can come back and check your answers. I'm going to do a couple of them again so you can hear my thought process as I go through it. I am going to write my cheat sheet over here, is over of. Alright, and so let's look at the first one. I look for the percent, the number with the percent. This doesn't have it, so I have what percent? Percent over 100 equals is over of. Cross the equal sign and multiply. Cross the equal sign and multiply. Then use algebra to solve, and I get x equals 60. 300 divided by 5 is 60, so x equals 60. Alright, then the next one, again, what percent? I don't know what the percent is, so it's going to be x over 100. Then I do is over of. Cross the equal sign and multiply. Cross the equal sign and multiply. And then when I solve that, I get 125, and it is a percent, so I need my percent symbol. I forgot my percent symbol on the first one. So my answer for that is 125%. And then my answer for the first one is 60%. Alright, so my next examples, what number is 80% of 60? Write my little cheat sheet, is over of. 80%, I look for the number with the percent. So I have 80%. 80 over 100 equals is, I don't know my is, so it's x over of. Cross the equal sign and multiply. Cross the equal sign and multiply. 60 times 80 is 4,800. Then divide both sides by 100. X equals 48. Okay, let's look at the next one. And if you've already done these and you kind of want to fast forward through the explanations, you certainly can. So start with my percent. 10% is 10 over 100. Then is what number? I don't know. So that goes x. And then of is 40.5. Cross the equal sign and multiply. Cross the equal sign and multiply. 40.5 times 10 is 405. Then divide both sides by 100. X equals 4.05. Okay, my last two examples start with my cheat sheet, is over of. Then number 5, I'm going to start with the percent. So I have 0.1 over 100 equals is over of. So is 4 goes on top. Then of what number? I don't know, so it goes, a variable goes on the bottom. 0.1 times x is 0.1x. 4 times 100 is 400. Divide both sides by 0.1. Then x equals 4,000. I'm using a calculator to solve these, so calculator is very helpful. Alright, then let's look at my last one. My last one, I'm going to start with the 25%. 25 over 100, so I've used that. Then is 1/2, and then of what number? I don't know. It goes on bottom. Cross the equal sign and multiply. 25x. Cross the equal sign and multiply. 100 times 1/2 is 50. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 25. 50 divided by 25 is 2. Hopefully after this lesson it kind of makes sense. If you are still struggling, we're going to have a lot of practice in class. But if you're really struggling, please come see me.